There are lots of different ways to take notes and try to remember information that you learned in school. And many of you probably spent time reading an article or reading a chapter in a textbook and trying to highlight everything in it, thinking that that will help you remember. And as you're reading through, you may find that everything seems important, so you end up with a big chunk of highlighted text. And it's hard to remember why you highlighted certain items, and it's certainly even harder to study from your highlighting. So what I'd like to show you today are 3 different note-taking techniques that might be useful for you here in college. The first technique is called Cornell Notes. This is a note-taking system that asks you to divide your ideas into 3 separate quadrants on your paper, and you're using the bulk of your paper to take direct notes from the lecture. So for example, if your instructor is talking about an event in history or a concept in biology, the right main part of the paper is going to have the notes of information that you're taking in. What's great about Cornell Notes is that you don't have to try to write in complete sentences. You can use bullets or numbers, but you're trying to contain as much information as you can on the bulk of your paper in that big square. On the left side, in the smaller column, this is a spot where you can add additional information either during the lecture or after. So it's supplemental ideas, maybe some questions, maybe you draw some lines and you add some additional detail to really trying to gather a lot of information on the paper. When you're done, right after the lecture is over, is a good time to try to write a summary of what you learned at the bottom. And this sort of forces you to think through, what did you just take in? What do you understand? And if you had to sum up what the lecture was about, how could you do that in your own words? So this technique, as I said, is called Cornell Notes. The next note-taking technique I want to talk to you about is KWL. And you can see that this is basically separating information into 3 columns. The first one is know. So you're trying to take stock of what you already know about a given topic. The second column is W, which means what do I want to learn about this topic? So you're going to ask some questions. What do I need to know? What else could I find out that would help me understand better? And then the third column is learn, so that's L, and it's actually writing down what you ended up learning after a lecture or reading. And this is really great because you start off by taking stock of where you're at. So if you don't know a lot about a topic, you might only have a few notes in that first column, but it forces your brain to start thinking and making associations before you even start listening to a lecture or reading an article. Then, by asking some questions and making a list of what you would like to learn about the subject, it's actually activating those connectors by getting you ready to learn something new. So if you wanted to learn something and then you did, it's going to connect and stick a little bit better, which makes it easier to remember. And then that third column, writing down what you learned, you end up with this complete picture, what you used to know, what you thought you might want to know, and what you actually do know. So it's a very well-rounded note-taking technique that makes it easy to remember what's going on in a lecture or reading because you're making the connections as you're taking notes. The third note-taking technique I want to talk to you about is the double entry or dual entry journal notes. And this is a very simple technique where you can take a regular piece of paper and draw a line straight down the middle. And then the goal is to record some information from a reading or from a text on the left side. That can be a short passage, some interesting vocabulary, a quote, what you think might be an important statistic or a main idea. And you're gathering things as you see them, but then later you're going to spend a little bit of time adding a reaction or your own thoughts. So the left side of the paper records what's happening in the text, and the right side records what's happening in your head. So if you read a passage and it's confusing or interesting or shocking, you write the passage on the left side, and then the right side could be your reaction, or it could be a comparison, or it could be a spot to put a definition, or to explain something that helps you understand what you found in the text. So this requires some thought and some processing, but also gives you some discussion points. So this would be a great note-taking technique to use if you were going to have a class discussion about, say, a piece of literature or a historical event that you read in your history class. You not only have a way to record what's in the text, but you can record your thoughts, making it easier to have a discussion later on. No matter which of these techniques you try, I think that you'll find that several of them will apply to multiple subjects and can be very useful in college. And ultimately, they're going to help you retain your information, learn and understand things better, prepare you for discussions, and it's always going to be better than a big pile of highlighted text. So I hope that these were helpful.